Hello and welcome to this final first look exploring session looking at how a man may choose a good wife from a bad. As of yet, no such choice has been precisely illustrated in the text, but maybe this session we will get that thrown in our general direction. It has given us a number of different reader responses so far, so I'm quite interested to see how the play will land as a final act of action as we go into Act 4 and Act 5. There's been much to delight, there's been much to ponder, and there's been a few bits of and various issues, of course, with the basic premise. But we shall see how it all comes together as we complete the text today, and we will do that with this fine body of readers. And reading today, Aminadab and Brabo is.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu, and I'm an author based in the southeast of England.
Reading Mary and Hugh is.
Hello, my name is Lynn Freitas. I'm a college composition teacher, and I'm coming to you from the northwestern United States.
And reading Mistress Arthur today is.
Briony, Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire.
And reading her husband Arthur and first boy is.
Alan, based in Suffolk.
Reading Anselm, Pipkin, and old Lusam is.
Rachael, actor on the East Coast.
Reading Fuller, Splay, and old Arthur is.
DiRoberto, academic Tucson.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and also stepping in to read the Justice. Justice Reason. So without further ado, we're going to dive into Act 4, Scene 1. Enter Anselm.
What frantic humour doth thus haunt my sense, striving to breed destruction in my spirit? When I would sleep, the ghost of my sweet love appears unto me in an angel's shape. When I'm awake, my fantasy presents, as in a glass, the shadow of my love. When I would speak, her name intrudes itself into the perfect echoes of my speech. And though my thought beget some other word, yet will my tongue speak nothing but her name. If I do meditate, it is on her. If I dream of her, or if discourse of her, I think her ghost doth haunt me, as in times of former darkness old wives' tales report.
Enter Fuller.
Here comes my better genius, whose advice directs me still in all my actions. How now, from whence come you?
Faith, from the street, in which as I passed by, I met the modest Mistress Arthur's corpse, and after her as mourners, her first her husband, next Justice Reason, then old Master Arthur, old Master Lusam, and young Lusam too, with many other kinsfolk, neighbors, friends, and others that lament her funeral. Her body is by this laid in the vault.
And in that vault my body I will lay. I prithee, leave. Thither is my way.
I am sure you jest. You mean not as you say.
No, I'll but go to church and pray.
Nay, then we shall be troubled with your humor.
As ever thou didst love me, or as ever thou didst delight in my society, by all the rights of friendship and of love, let me entreat thy absence but 1 hour, and at the hour's end I will come to thee.
Nay, if you will be foolish and past reason, I'll wash my hands like Pilate from my folly, and suffer thee in these extremities.
Exit Fuller.
Now it is night, and the bright lamps of heaven are half burned out. Now bright Adel Bora welcomes the cheerful day star to the east, and harmless stillness hath possessed the world. This is the church, this hollow is the vault, where the dead body of my saint remains, and this the coffin that enshrines her body, for her bright soul is now in paradise. My coming is with no intent of sin, or to defile the body of the dead, but rather take my last farewell of her, or languishing and dying by her side, my airy soul post after hers to heaven.
And comes to Mistress Arthur's tomb.
First, with this latest kiss I seal my love. Her lips are warm, and I am much deceived. if that she stir not. Oh, this Golgotha, this place of dead men's bones is terrible, presenting fearful apparitions. It is some spirit that in the coffin lies, and makes my hair stand up on end with fear. Come to thyself, faint heart. She sits upright. Oh, I would hide me, but I know not where. Tush, if it be a spirit, 'tis a good spirit. For with her body living, ill she knew not, and with her body dead, ill cannot meddle.
Who am I? Or where am I?
Oh, she speaks, and by her language now I know she lives.
Oh, who can tell me where I am become? For in this darkness I have lost myself. I am not dead, for I have sense and life. How come I then in this coffin buried?
And so, be bold, she lives, and destiny hath trained thee hither to redeem her life.
Lives any mongst these dead? None but myself?
Oh, yes, a man whose heart till now was dead, lives and survives at your return to life. Nay, start not. I am Anselm, one who long hath doted on your fair perfection, and, loving you more than became me well, was hither sent by some strange providence to bring you from these hollow vaults below to be a liver in the world again.
I understand you, and I thank the heavens that sent you to revive me from this fear, and I embrace my safety with goodwill.
Enter Aminadab with 2 or 3 boys.
Mane quitus lectum fugae, mollem discute somnum, templa patus supplex, et venerate Deum. Shake off thy sleep, get up betimes, go to the church and pray. And never fear, God will thee hear, and keep thee all the day. Good counsel, boys, observe it, mark it well. This early rising, this diluculo, is good both for your bodies and your minds. 'Tis not yet day, give me my tinderbox. Meantime, unloose your satchels and your books, draw, and take you to your lessons, boys.
Oh, Lord, Master, what's that in the white sheet?
In the white sheet, my boy. Dick Ubi, where?
Vide, Master, vide illic, there!
Oh, Domine, keep us from evil, a charm from flesh, the world and the devil.
Exeunt Aminadab and boys.
Oh, tell me not my husband was in great, or that he did attempt to poison me, or that he laid me here and I was dead. These are no means at all to win my love.
Sweet mistress, he bequeathed you to the earth. You promised him to be his wife till death, and you have kept your promise. But now, since the world, your husband, and your friend suppose that you are dead, grant me but one respect, and I will swear never to solicit more. Your sacred thoughts to my dishonest love.
So your demand may be no prejudice to my chaste name, no wrong unto my husband, no suit that may concern my wedlock's breach. I yield unto it. But to pass the bounds of modesty and chastity, sooner will I bequeath myself again unto this grave, and never part from hence, than taint my soul with black impurity.
Take here my hand and faithful heart to gauge, that I will never tempt you more to sin. This my request is, since your husband dotes upon a lewd, lascivious courtesan, since he hath broke the bonds of your chaste bed, and, like murderer, sent you to your grave, do but go with me to my mother's house. There shall you live in secret for a space, only to see the end of such lewd lust, and know the difference of a chaste wife's bed, and one whose life is in all looseness led.
Your mother is a virtuous matron held. Her counsel, conference, and company may much avail me. There a space I'll stay, upon condition, as you said before, you never will move your unchaste suit more.
My faith is pawned. Oh, never had chaste wife, a husband so lewd in unchaste life.
And exit. There's a lot to unpack here, much of which pleases me. I do like the fact that Aminadab does a school trip to the local catacombs. Bring your books, sit down, here's a bit of light, and then the boys, I love the way the boys and Aminadab can't help but still make the discovery of a ghost a Latin lesson. I think that is delightful. Dick Hooby, where? Very nicely done. And it's set up very nicely as well. Anselm at the beginning going, I see her everywhere. Yes, you will when she awakes in a moment. And Anselm's redemption here, I mean, in a sense, he was never too bad a character in the sense, he loved her, he was infatuated, he was suggesting an affair, but he was always, counterpointed to Fuller, who was a much worse, horrible person. This is quite nicely pulled off, I have to say. And there is just one really dodgy thing about Anselm in this scene, which is the thing of, I don't come to this tomb to do anything dodgy. No, definitely not. I'm definitely not doing anything dodgy, as he leans in to kiss the corpse. I mean, I think we can possibly find a way around that one, but yeah, it's the way he talks about it in advance of going, I'm definitely not committing necrophilia, definitely not doing that, definitely not at all. Anyway, sorry, thoughts on the room. I'll go to Lynn.
Yeah, it was exactly, it's like, okay, you're not here to do that, why even bring it up? Sort of feel like the little red herring kind of, or the distraction with Aminadab and the boys is actually kind of clever, and I haven't seen that before. So basically we have a little bit of a comic interlude while supposedly, ostensibly, Anselm explains to Mistress Arthur what's been going on. So we as the audience don't have to hear a rehash of what we already know, but we know that she gets an update on the situation. So you get to sort of have your cake and eat it. You get to have that happen. Mistress Arthur gets told what apparently happened, but we don't have to hear it over again. We get this funny little thing happening on another part of the stage, and that strikes me as really quite original, and might be actually real effective.
Yeah, I'm also just tonally as well, because Anselm is laying it on really thick in this scene, and to have something to just break that up a bit is quite nice. Rachael, then Briony, then Alan, and then Elizabeth. I think everyone basically.
I was gonna ask that I mean, like, I know in some other parts Memento Mori was part of that, like, Renaissance mindset, so maybe that's why he brings the boys there for a school lesson. But was Latin considered a dead language at this time? Oh no, not yet.
It's still actively being used everywhere. It's very active. But yeah, hi children, you're gonna die. Get out your crayons. Briony.
I don't know, for me, the way he kind of was talking when we first went on, obviously there were alarm bells, and I was thinking, like, please don't do what I think you're going to do. But then I think the fact that he doesn't, it kind of made it work. Like, I don't know, like, I think I'd have found him kissing the corpse even creepier, but because it was like, oh, okay, that's it, fine, that's finished, he's not actually going to do things with the corpse. I don't know, somehow made it all right.
Alan, then Elizabeth.
Yeah, I mean, the thought that crossed my mind was whether, in fact, the schoolmaster has taken the boys there for an art lesson on the basis that it's cheaper than employing a live model. But to answer Rachel's point about Latin being extinct, the grammar schools work so cool because they taught Latin grammar.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, getting like a lot of Duckman vibes in this scene.
Yeah.
And I was just like, are you allowed to do that?
Yes. My gaff.
So I really loved Anselm's speech. I thought his speech was really beautiful. And I thought it was a contrast. Again, I'm just like thinking, where is the comedy here? This is just quite dark. You know, this has gone into like kind of dark territory. And then Aminadab turns up, as you do.
The way you do.
You know, as you do with the boys. And then it becomes this kind of like Latin lesson. And then they run off. And then that was when like the humor kind of comes back in. So I was like, okay, so the author does know what they're doing here.
And the thing is, obviously, the audience knows that Mistress Arthur is alive, so they're sort of expecting her to just go from on a thing. I think around about the same time we've got I don't know which of the two Antonio plays it's in, but we do have a lengthy grave sequence there. So I'm wondering if there's a feeding off in one way or the other that might be going on there. We're talking about influences. I do quite like Anselm, saying, "I will ask a wish of you," and Mistress Arthur, knowing about literary conventions, of going, "Yes, I'm going to put some conditions down before I grant your wish, whatever it is. Could I just make it absolutely clear we're not going here? I have met you before," and and that I quite like. I did again, Mistress Arthur, laying down some basic ground rules. I'm pleased. I'm pleased you have read these traditions before. Rachael, then we will move on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, this whole scene kind of makes me think of like horror or Gothic literature in a way, like how there's always some descent into a crypt with like vampire stuff. I don't know, it makes me think of that show with the one character named Josette and then the other one named Angelique, that maybe somebody in this room would remember.
Got nothing. Got nothing.
I keep thinking of the Fall of the House of Usher.
Yeah, that would work. It does seem to be, but I think, let's say tonally, because Anselm is really going for it, and it's being set up quite nicely from the very beginning. I keep seeing her. You will in a second, mate. Any second now. Anyway, we must move on.
Looks so living for a corpse.
Yeah. Anyway, Mistress Arthur is alive. Let us go into Act 4, Scene 2, as we're going over to the other house, as it were. Enter Mistress Mary, Mistress Splay, and Brabo.
Mistress, I long have served you, even since these bristled hairs upon my grave-like chin were all unborn. When I first came to you, these infant feathers of these ravens' wings were not once begun.
No, indeed, they were not.
Now in my 2 mustachios for a need, wanting a rope, I well could hang myself. I prithee, mistress, for all my long service, for all the love that I've borne thee along, do me this favour now to marry me.
Enter young Master Arthur.
Marry, come up, you blockhead, you great ass. What, wouldst thou have me marry with a devil? But peace, no more. Here comes the silly fool that we so long have set our lime twigs for. Be gone, and leave me to entangle him.
Exeunt Mistress Splay and Brabo.
What, Mistress Mary?
Oh, good Master Arthur. Where have you been this week, this month, this year? Oh, this year, said I. Where have you been this age? Unto a lover's every minute seems time out of mind. How should I think you love me that can endure to stay so long from me?
Faith, sweetheart, I saw thee yesternight.
Aye, true, you did. But since you saw me not, at 12 o'clock you parted from my house, and now 'tis morning, and new struck in 7. 7 hours thou stayed from me. Why didst thou so? They are my 7 years' prenticeship of woe.
I prithee be patient. I had some occasion that did enforce me from thee yesternight.
Aye, you are soon enforced, fool that I am, to dote on one that not respecteth me. 'Tis but my fortune I am born to bear it, and every one shall have their destiny.
Nay, weep not, wench. Thou woundest me with thy tears.
I am a fool, and so you make me too. These tears are better kept than spent on waste on one that neither tenders them nor me. What remedy? But if I chance to die or to miscarry, with that I do go withal, I'll take my death that thou art cause thereof. You told me that when your wife was dead, you would forsake all others and take me.
I told thee so, and I will keep my word. For that end I came thus early to thee. I've procured a license, and this night we will be married in a lawless church.
These news revive me, and do somewhat ease the thought that was new gotten to my heart. But shall it be tonight?
Ay, wench, tonight. The sennight and odd days since my wife died is past already, and her timeless death. 'Tis but a 9 days' talk. Come, go with me, and it shall be dispatched presently.
Nay, then, I see thou lovest me. I find that this last motion thou art grown more kind.
My love and kindness like my age shall grow, with time increase, and thou shalt see, the older I grow, the kinder I will be.
Aye, so I hope it will, but as for mine, that with my age shall day by day decline. Come, shall we go?
With thee to the world's end, whose beauty most admire and all commend.
And exit. Well, when your wife's been dead a little over a week, hey, let's get married again. Yeah, great. So unexpected bigamy coming up. Happy days. Thoughts in the room, Alan?
Yeah, I must admit I got confused there over the timeline, because they're basically saying he went at midnight the night before, and I thought that was referring to the end of the party.
No. It's about 9 days. It's
right.
7 days and 7 and odd days, so 9 days. Elizabeth, then Kyle.
Is it too long? Is it time? You know, it's been 7 days. I was really enjoying this thing about the lawless church. And like, how has he procured this license so quickly? And what kind of church is a lawless church?
These are very good questions. Yeah. Excellent. Yes. I mean, broadly speaking, there are ways to get married in a hurry. But yeah, how precisely that functions, I don't really know, actually. Kyle.
Yeah, I was wondering about the same thing, the lawless church. And also, I was wondering if they're kind of being duplicitous with each other, because she has that aside. And I couldn't quite get what she was saying in that aside, but it seemed like she was being a little bit dastardly in her.
Oh, yeah.
In what she was saying, right? Is she that kind? I mean, I'm on the tail end of this. But.
Oh, you're right. So Mary is a courtesan, and this is her establishment. She is the protege of Mistress Splay, who is an older sex worker. And Brabo is sort of... we're not quite sure precisely how Brabo functions within. Is he quite her pimp, or just a hanger-on, or is he sort of just there to as just muscle? To protect. He's a little ambiguous precisely how he functions. I'm not quite sure. But yes, I'm sure absolutely Mary is just going, yeah, she just wants to hook him and get his money. And I'm sure it's very duplicitous. Lynn, then Elizabeth.
Yeah, just to confirm, that she basically literally says we've set a snare for this guy. Don't know exactly what the nature of that is, that she's going to pretend to marry him or marry him in form, then try to get a hold of as much of his substance as she can and go back to sex work or what. But yeah, she doesn't want to marry. She doesn't want a bona fide marriage. She wants access to his assets.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, I was just wanting to sort of second what Lynn said. I was thinking about like Mary's sort of sudden rise in the world, and like, so it's because she's been kind of elevated from like this prostitute, this courtesan, to like the wife of Master Arthur, And I thought that was quite interesting how that worked, how that concept of like her raising in status works. Then also I was thinking about like the name Mistress Splay, which was quite funny. I just kept thinking of like spatchcocking. You know, they do, it's something that they do with like chickens, that they kind of flatten it and then like they splay the legs to cook it. So I was just thinking, does splay mean what it means now, to be splayed?
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny, but very rude.
Yes, I think if to quote Joe Orton, it's the Y-shaped coffin is what we're discussing here. Anyway, moving on from that quote, very quickly, just retreating from that, just because it's a quotation doesn't mean it was a good thing to say. Right, okay. Act 4, Scene 3, we return to Anselm and Fuller. So, Act 4, Scene 3, Anselm and Fuller.
'Tis true, as I relate the circumstance, and she is with my mother safe at home. But yet, for all the hate I can allege against her husband, nor for all the love that on my own part I can urge her to, will she be one to gratify my love.
All things are full of ambiguity, and I admire this wondrous accident. But Anselm authors about a new wife, a bona roba. How will she take it when she hears this news?
I think, even as a virtuous maid should, it may be that report may, from thy mouth, beget some pity from her flinty heart, and I will urge her with it presently.
Unless report be false, they are linked already. They are fast as words can tie them. I will tell thee how I by chance did meet him the last night. One said to me this author did intend to have a wife, and presently to marry. Amidst the street I met him as my friend, and to his love a present he did carry. It was some ring, some stomacher, a toy. I spake to him, and bade God give him joy. God give me joy, quoth he, of what I pray? Pray, quoth I, your wedding that is toward. 'Tis false, quoth he, and would have gone his way. Come, come, quoth I, so near it and so forward. I urged him hard by our familiar loves, prayed him withal not to forget my gloves. Then he began, your kindness hath been great, your courtesy great, and your love not common. Yet so much favor, pray, let me entreat, to be excused from marrying any woman. I knew the wench that is become his bride, and smiled to think how deeply he had lied. For first he swore he did not court a maid, a wife he could not, she was elsewhere tied. And as for such as widows were, he said, and deeply swore none such should be his bride. Widow, nor wife, nor maid, I asked no more, knowing he was betrothed unto a whore.
Is it not Mistress Mary that you mean? She that did dine with us at Arthur's house?
At which point enter Mistress Arthur.
The same, the same. Here comes the gentlewoman. Oh, Mistress Arthur, I am of your counsel. Welcome from death to life.
Mistress, this gentleman hath news to tell ye, and as you like of it, so think of me.
Your husband hath already got a wife, a huffing wench, in faith, whose ruffling silks make with their motion music unto love, and you are quite forgotten.
I have sworn to move this my unchaste demand no more.
When doth your color change? When do your eyes sparkle with fire to revenge these wrongs? When doth your tongue break into rage and wrath against the scum of manhood, your vile husband? He first misused you.
And yet can you love him?
He left your chaste bed to defile the bed of sacred marriage with a courtesan.
Yet can you love him?
And not content with this, abused your honest name with slanderous words and filled your husband's house with unquietness, hushed house with unquietness.
And can you love him yet?
Nay, did he not with his rude fingers dash you on the face and double dye your coral lips with blood? Hath he not torn those gold wires from your head, wherewith Apollo would have strung his harp, and kept them to play music to the gods? Hath he not beat you, and with his rude fist upon that crimson temperature of your cheeks, laid a lead color with his boisterous blows?
And can you love him yet?
Then did he not, either by poison or some other plot, send you to death, where by his providence God hath preserved you by that wondrous miracle? Nay, after death hath he not scandalized your place with an immodest courtesan?
And can you love him yet?
And yet, and still, and ever whilst I breathe this air. Nay, after death my unsubstantial soul, like a good angel, shall attend on him, and keep him from all harm. But is he married? Much good do his heart. Pray God she may content him better far than I have done. Long may they live in peace, till I disturb their solace. But because I fear some mischief doth hang o'er his head, I'll weep my eyes dry with my present care, and for their healths make hoarse my tongue with prayer.
Exit Mistress Arthur.
Art sure she is a woman? If she be, she is great of nature's purity.
Oh, yes, I too well know she is a woman. Henceforth my virtue shall my love withstand, and of my striving thoughts get th' upper hand.
Then, thus resolved, I straight will drink to thee a health thus deep to drown thy melancholy.
And they exit. Okay, this scene is doing some really interesting things. It's interesting. Anselm, at the beginning of the scene, is sort of going back on his, oh, I won't ever ask her again. And he's immediately going, oh, maybe I can still persuade her that she'll like me once she hears about what's been going on. And then he does this aside of saying, I won't push it anymore. I won't push it anymore. And then he immediately does, and he keeps pushing it until we get to Mistress Arthur's response. And Fuller is describing physical abuse, which I don't think we'd had detailed anywhere earlier in the text. This is not just he's being a bit of an arse. This is actually a description of domestic violence, which is then raising the stakes even more. And then Mistress Arthur says, and yet, and still. And that sort of really does break the mirth of the play for a modern audience, because we've been able to equivocate a little bit so far. Not sure we can anymore. Briony, and then Elizabeth.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with what you said, but what a really beautifully written scene. That was incredible to read and to hear it read, and like the way it builds, and yet that was fantastic.
Yeah, and in a sense, if it wasn't a comedy, it's very effective, because we're talking about domestic violence of people going back to their partners. It is entirely psychologically accurate, and throughout all of this, we've been going. The playwright really knows what they're doing. It's really well structured. There's some really good stuff. It's just how the play is landing as a modern text is doing very different work than what we assume the original audience would have been taking from this in places. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I really love the call and response kind of thing going on, and can you still love him, and can you still love him? I really think that reiterates the kind of situation, but we're very much walking into Patient Griselle territory here, because Mistress Arthur she's beyond. She doesn't have that kind of three-dimensional human quality where she might get angry or feel like lamenting her fate or anything like that. She's just like, oh, I love him, and I will bear everything he does, no matter how bad it is. And I was like, okay, we're getting into Patient Griselle territory here. And then again, my question is like, is it funny? Not really here. We're not really getting the humor and the comedy. It's more tragic. We're getting into more tragic territory here.
Yeah, and I think even if we are situating it in its original form as a comedy, that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be scenes where it's pulling into a drama direction, and it does seem to be that's what this particular scene is doing. I don't think this is aiming for comedy per se, but yeah, it's definitely pulling in a different direction. Kyle, then Rachael.
Yeah, I was surprised by the violence. I wasn't anticipating that that he details. But then at the end there, it was also very disappointing, because it seems like he was summing up how we're supposed to think about it as her accepting all that as being purity and valorous. And yeah, that was kind of disturbing.
This is one which, even more so than with Patient Griselle, have actually really pulling us into the early modern mindset, because it's situating us in a more believable setup. I mean, yes, there's all these ridiculous over-the-top things going on in it and the ridiculous plots, but in the sense that Patient Griselle, there's no reason why anyone is doing any of the things that they're doing. Whereas here we do have reasoning, and we do have arguments put forward for why people are doing things in different ways. And there's a social situation that is functioning in a much more plausible way. And that's possibly making it more disturbing. Rachael, then Lynn.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I was just going to reiterate that Patient Griselle thing, and I'm glad people brought that up because it's kind of what it feels like. But like, because I haven't been here for the other sessions, has he threatened physical violence against her, or has it been shown? And could you, make a decision as a production to be truthful and say that these guys are telling the truth? Because you said that she's had other suitors, and maybe is he more like an emotional manipulator? And is this like those types of guys who assume that project onto the women that they are interested in, that whoever they're with must not be treating them right, and they should be with them because they treat them so much better, and like it's an emotional manipulation that isn't true? Or could you play with that and maybe have some sort of discussion, even if it is a comedy, that maybe it's true to the abuse, or maybe that this guy's trying to abuse her as like not like a vice-like figure, but he has his own corruption, and maybe he's not as physically sexually aggressive with her, but he's trying to manipulate her in an emotional way.
I mean, that's definitely Fuller's MO. And Fuller is sort of training Anselm to work in that way. So I think that's absolutely, as a unit, those two are functioning in that way. They're attempting a different kind of manipulation. Earlier in the text, there really wasn't an indication that Arthur was physically assaulting her. I mean, apart from the fact he tries to kill her, but on the domestic front, it didn't appear that there any more was going on there. So I'm assuming it's true, because otherwise it's a bit of a thing for Fuller to be saying he's been hitting her, because otherwise it doesn't. She would just say, "Well, that didn't happen," and would move on. Was it Lynn next?
Yeah, and I just kind of want to confirm what's been said, that, first of all, I really kind of don't want to go against the grain enough to make Anselm a manipulator. I don't think he's that bright. And he really, I think, is basically decent and genuinely cares for Mistress Arthur. So Fuller would do that, would like exaggerate the misery of her previous situation, in order to say, oh, my friend would treat you so much better. But yeah, he wouldn't write out, said, didn't he used to beat you up, if that wasn't true, because Mistress Arthur's not dumb. She'd be like, no, that never happened. What are you talking about? And going back to, Rob's observations about Griselda, so there's something about Griselda, it feels like a folk tale where things just happen because they happen. And this does not feel like a folk tale at all. This is much more, grounded in everyday reality. So yeah, it's even though it's like, oh yeah, this totally reminds us of the way Griselda behaved, it's more disturbing because it seems more naturalistic or realistic.
And in a sense, the Anselm has, he has also swallowed the patriarchy whole, but in the sense he his motives certainly to him feel purer, and they're less cynical than Fuller. That doesn't mean they're any less dangerous as an idea, and that's quite interesting. Anyway, unfortunately, we need to move into Act 5. Hold on to those thoughts, feed them into other things. To find where we go. Act 5, Scene 1. Enter Mistress Mary, young Master Arthur, Brabo, and Mistress Splay.
Not have my will? Yes, I will have my will. Shall I not go abroad, but when you please? Can I not now and then meet with my friends, but at my coming home you will control me? Marry, come up.
Where are the patients? Hey, brother, where's become my former spleen? I had a wife and would not have used me so.
Why, you jack-sauce, you cuckold, you what not? What, am I not of age sufficient to go and come still when my pleasure serves? But I must have you, sir, to question me. Not have my will. Yes, I will have my will.
I had a wife would not have used me so, and she is dead.
Not have her will, sir. She shall have her will. She say she will, and sir, I say she shall. Not have her will? That were a jest indeed. Who says she shall not? If I be disposed to man her forth, who shall find fault with it? What's he that dare say blacks her eye? What he that dare say blacks her eye? Though you be married, sir, yet you must know that she was ever born to have her will.
Not have her will? God's passion, I say still, a woman's nobody that wants her will.
Where's my spirit? What, shall I maintain a strumpet with a Brabo and a board to beard me out of my authority? What, am I from a master made a slave?
A slave, nay worse. Dost thou maintain my man and this my maid? 'Tis I maintain them both. I am thy wife. I will not be dressed so, while thy gold lasts. But then most willingly I will bequeath thee to flat beggary. I do already hate thee. Do thy worst.
He threatens her.
Nay, touch me not, if thou darest. What, shall he beat me?
I'll make him seek his fingers mongst the dogs that dares to touch my mistress. Never fear. My sword shall smooth the wrinkles of his brows that bends a frown upon my mistress.
I had a wife would not have used me so, but God is just.
Now, Arthur, if I knew what in this world would most torment thy soul, that would I do. Would all my evil usage could make thee straight despair and hang thyself. Now I remember. Where's Arthur's man Pipkin, the slave? Go, turn him out of doors. None that loves Arthur shall have house room here.
Enter Pipkin.
Yonder he comes. Brabo, discard the fellow.
Shall I be overmastered in my own? Be thyself, Arthur. Strumpet, he shall stay.
What? Shall he, Brabo? Shall he, Mistress Splay?
Shall he? He shall not. Breathes there any living dare say he shall, when Brabo says he shall not?
Is there no law for this? She is my wife. Should I complain, I should be rather mocked. I am content. Keep by thee, woman, by thee whom thou list. Discharge whom thou thinkst good. Do what thou wilt. Rise, go to bed, stay at home, or go abroad. At thy good pleasure. Keep all companies, so that for all this I may have but peace. Be unto me as I was to my wife. Only give me what I denied her then, a little love, some small quietness. If he displease thee, turn him out of doors.
Who, me? Turn me out of doors? Is this all the wages I shall have at the year's end? To be turned out of doors? You, mistress, you are you are a...
A what? Speak, a what? Touch her and touch me. Taint her and taint me. Speak, speak, a what?
Marry. A woman that is kin to the frost.
How do you mean?
And you are akin to the Latin word, to understand.
And what's that?
Subodi. Subodi? And, sir, do you not use to pink doublets?
And why?
I took you for a cutter. You are of a great kindred. You are a common cousin. Everybody calls you cousin. Besides, they say you are a very good warrener. You have been an old conny catcher, but if I be turned a begging, as I know not what I am born to, and that you ever come to the trade, as nothing is impossible, I'll set all the commonwealth of beggars on your back. And all the congregation of vermin shall be put to your keeping. And then, if you be not more bitten than all the company of beggars besides, I'll not have my will. Zounds, turned out of doors. I'll go and set up my trade, a dish to drink in that I have within, a wallet that I'll make of an old shirt, then my speech, for the Lord's sake, I beseech your worship. Then I must have a lame leg. I'll go to football and break my shins, and I am provided for that.
What? Stands the villain prating? Hence, you slave.
Exit Pipkin.
Art thou yet pleased?
When I have had my humour.
Good friends, for manners' sake, a while withdraw.
It is our pleasure, sir, to stand aside.
Mistress Splay and Brabo stand aside.
Mary, what cause hast thou to use me thus? For nothing I've raised thee to much wealth. 'Twas more than I did owe thee. Many a pound, nay, many £100 I spent on thee in my wife's time. And once, but by my means, thou hadst been in much danger. But in all things, my purse and credit ever bear thee out. I did not owe thee this. I had a wife that would have laid herself beneath my feet to do me service. Her I set at naught for the entire affection I bear thee. To show that I have loved thee, have I not, above all women, made chief choice of thee, an argument sufficient of my love? What reason then hast thou to wrong me thus?
It is my humour.
Oh, but such humours honest wives should purge. I'll show thee a far greater instance yet of the true love that I have borne to thee. Thou knewest my wife, was she not fair?
So.
But more than fair, was she not virtuous, endued with the beauty of the mind?
Faith, so they said.
Hark in thine ear, I'll trust thee with my life, than which, what greater instance of my love? Thou knewest full well how suddenly she died. To enjoy thy love, even then I poisoned her.
How? Poisoned her? Accursed murderer! I'll ring this fatal alarm in all ears. Than which, what greater instance of my hate?
Wilt thou not keep my counsel?
Villain, no. Thou poisoned me as thou hast poisoned her.
Dost thou reward me thus for all my love? Then, Arthur, fly and seek to save thy life. Oh, difference twixt a chaste and unchaste wife.
Exit Arthur.
Pursue the murderer. Apprehend him straight.
Why? What's the matter, mistress?
This villain Arthur poisoned his first wife, which he in secret hath confessed to me. Go and fetch warrants from the justices to attach the murderer. He, once hanged and dead, his wealth is mine. Pursue the slave that's fled.
Mistress, I will. He shall not pass this land, but I will bring him bound with this strong hand.
And exit. So, with a bit of luck, Arthur's going to get hanged. That's the ending we're looking for, isn't it, people? My word, does this scene expose a seam of stuff, doesn't it? It's like Arthur just going, oh, God, if only I had the pliant, submissive wife that would do everything I said. Oh, oh, God. He threatens Mary with violence for basically saying, don't be an arsehole. I mean, she is occasionally, some of her demands here are unfair, but her initial basically thing is just stop being an arsehole. And yeah, I think Mary has a point from what we've met so far. And there's all this stuff with Pipkin as well. Pipkin's little tirade, not all of which I unpacked in that first reading. There was a lot in there I was going, oh, I need to really dig into this to know what's going on. But there's a lot that is very clear. And, when there's this sort of angry abuse, Pipkin just explodes. It's fascinating. Yeah, this really does highlight the early modern mind, doesn't it? It really does. My word. Someone swallowed the patriarchy there. Lynn, then Briony, then Rachael, then Kyle.
It's just an interesting scene for Mary as a character, too. I mean, I suppose she can, entrap Arthur and do whatever it is that she's planning to do without sort of laying on the torment and having him fire Pipkin. That seems a little just sort of gratuitously cruel. So does she have that kind of cruel streak? That's something that an actor and director need to work through, but very interesting. And but in any case, what is a fun scene for an actor, because not only does she get to just sort of rail at her husband, there's this very complex moment when he says, he's trying to win her over by saying, look, how much I trust you is I'm going to tell you this terrible secret. And she, on the surface, is shocked, but is probably at the same time not entirely surprised and a little bit gleeful, because this is exactly what they need. Now it's just like, now we can get rid of him. And I will be widowed with his estate. So, it'll be like, oh, shock. And then a little smirk, like, we got him. So what fun for an actor.
Yeah,
I know it's kind of gross of me to say, but
yeah, I mean, because Mary comes with an entourage as well. It's not like she is a lone figure with her abusive husband. She has got the, Brabo, who, can... I suspect he's pretty mean with his fists, and Splay, who is also moderately terrifying. So she brought her kneecap breaker with her from her previous situations. So when he threatens her, she just goes
Brabo?
No. And that highlights the disparity as well with Mistress Arthur as well. Anyway, Rachael, Briony, then Kyle.
Yeah, I was going to say, I like how the difference for Arthur between a chaste wife and an unchaste wife is that the unchaste wife is going to call him in for murder after he just confesses to her a murder. But I was going to say the Pipkin thing, there might be some action going on between him and Brabo, because Brabo has that next line and he's talking about the breaking his shins. That maybe there is some threats from Brabo there, and Pipkin starts, I think there's some joke about the undeserving poor there, that'll go break his shins and go beg somewhere, or something like that.
Briony.
Yeah, it could still go either way at the end, but that was quite a satisfying scene in terms of, I was just sat here thinking, Karma's a bitch. So it was nice to feel a bit of that, but I also loved that Pipkin got to have that moment as well. That was just really special. I'm still really, really enjoying this, but I'm aware we are, we're approaching. We're going to reach the end today, so we're going to find out.
Well, this scene constantly has repeated, or maybe only once or twice, but a choice between a good wife and a bad. The title is sort of starting to flash in neon lights above our heads of, Arthur is going to get a choice by the looks of it. Kyle.
Yeah, I was thinking about what Rachael said too, which is chastity is being redefined in these interesting ways of loyalty and obedience primarily. But I also was struck by, if this is the early 1600s, contrasting this with Roaring Girl, because the representation of Mary Moll is so different, and these are, now I'm seeing these as coney catchers because of what Pipkin said, and it just seems like night and day the way that the courtesan, the female coney catcher and her group are being represented as being so in such negative light, as opposed to them being kind of Robin Hood figures almost.
Yes, there's a lot on coney catching we have yet to do. One day it will happen. Anyway, any other thoughts before we move on into Act 5, Scene 2? Rachael.
Didn't we have a play, I can't remember the name, where we had a similar thing where some guy had a wife, but then there was also or was it something by Decker that came much later, where it was the guy was looking to marry somebody who was a courtesan or something like that? Was it one of those true crime ones?
It might be the Dutch courtesan. There's a chap wanting to marry a courtesan in that.
I think it was maybe I don't know. There's something about about this scene that reminds me of one of these plays that we've gone over before, but I can't remember the name. So maybe that's it.
I'm sure there'll be probably many more to come as we start digging further into the 17th century. As we go forward. So, Act 5, Scene 2. Enter Mistress Arthur, Paulie.
Oh, what are the vain pleasures of the world, that in their actions we affect them so? Had I been born a servant, my low life had steady stood from all these miseries. The waving reeds stand free from every gust. When the tall oaks are rent up by the roots, what is vain beauty but an idle breath? Why are we proud of that which so soon changes, but rather wish the beauty of the mind, which neither time can alter, sickness change, violence deface, nor the black hand of envy smudge and disgrace, or spoil, or make deformed? Oh, had my riotous husband borne this mind, he had been happy, I had been more blessed, and peace had brought our quiet souls to rest.
Enter young Master Arthur.
Oh, whither shall I fly to save my life, when murder and despair dogs at my heels? Oh, misery, thou never foundst a friend. All friends forsake men in adversity. My brother has denied to succour me, upbraiding me with the name of murderer. My uncles double bar their doors against me. My father hath declined to shelter me, and cursed me worse than Adam did vile Eve. I, that within these 2 days had more friends than I could number with arithmetic, have now no more than one poor cipher is, and that poor cipher I supply myself. All that I durst commit my fortune to, I have tried, and find none to relieve my wants. My sudden flight, fear of future shame, left me unfurnished of all necessaries, and these 3 days I have not tasted food.
It is my husband. Oh, how just is heaven, poorly disguised and almost hunger-starved. How comes this change?
Doth no man follow me? Oh, how suspicious guilty murder is. I starve for hunger and I die for thirst. Had I a kingdom, I would sell my crown for a small bit of bread. Ashamed to beg, and yet, perforce, I must, or beg, or starve. This house, belike, belongs to some gentlewoman. And here's a woman, I will beg of her. Good mistress, look upon a poor man's wants. See, tush, Arthur, she is dead. But that I saw her dead and buried, I would have sworn it had been Arthur's wife. But I will leave her. Shame forgets me, beg, of one so much resembles her.
Come hither, fellow. Wherefore dost thou turn thy guilty looks and blushing face aside? It seems thou hast not been brought up to this.
You say true, mistress. Then for charity, and for her sake whom you resemble most, pity my present want and misery.
It seems thou hast been in some better plight. Sit down, I prithee. Men, though they be poor, should not be scorned. To ease thy hunger, first eat these conserves. And now, I prithee, tell me, what thou hast been, thy fortunes, thy estate, and what she was that I resemble most.
First, look no man see or overhear us. I think that shape was born to do me good.
Hast thou known one that did resemble me?
Ay, mistress, I cannot choose but weep to call to mind the fortunes of her youth.
Tell me, of what estate or birth was she?
Born of good parents, and as well brought up. Most fair, but not so fair as virtuous. Happy in all things but her marriage. Her riotous husband, which I weep to think, by his lewd life made them both miscarry.
Why dost thou grieve at their adversities?
Oh, blame me not. That man my kinsman was, nearer to me than a kinsman could not be. As near allied was that chaste woman too. Nearer was never husband to his wife. He, whom I term my friend, no friend of mine, proving both mine and his own enemy, poisoned his wife. All the time he did so, joyed at her death, inhuman slave to do so, exchange her love for base strumpet's lust. Foul wretch, accursed villain, to exchange so.
You are wise and blessed, and happy to repent so. But what became of him and his new wife?
Oh, hear the justice of the highest heaven. This strumpet, in reward of all his love, pursues him for the death of his first wife. And now the woeful husband languisheth, and flies abroad, pursued by her fierce hate. And now, too late, he doth repent his sin, ready to perish in his own despair, having no means but death to rid his care.
I can endure no more, but I must weep. My blabbing tears cannot my counsel keep.
Why weep you, mistress? You had the heart of her whom you resemble in your face. But she is dead, and for her death the sponge of either eye shall weep red tears till every vein is dry.
Why weep you, friend? Your rainy drops, pray, keep. Repentance wipes away the drops of sin. Yet tell me, friend, he did exceeding ill, a wife that loved and honoured him to kill. Yet say one like her, far more chaste than fair, bids him be of good comfort, not despair. Her soul's appeased with his repentant tears, wishing he may survive her many years. Fain would I give him money to supply his present wants, but fearing he should fly, and getting over to some foreign shore, these rainy eyes should never see him more. My heart is full, I can no longer stay, but what I am, my love must needs bewray. Farewell, good fellow, and take this to spend. Say one like her commends her to your friend.
Exit Mistress Arthur.
No friend of mine, I was my own soul's foe, to murder my chaste wife that loved me so. In life she loved me dearer than her life. What husband here but what would wish such a wife? I hear the officers with hue and cry, she saved my life, but now, and now I die. And welcome death, I will not stir from hence. Death I deserved, I'll die for this offence.
Enter Brabo with officers, Mistress Splay and Hugh.
Here is the murderer and reason's man. You have the warrant, sirs. Lay hand on him. Attach the slave and lead him bound to death.
Nay, Mama Faith, Master Brabo, you have a better heart, at least you should have. I am sure you have more iron and steel than I have. Do you lay hands on him? I promise you I dare not.
Constables, forward. Forward, officers. I will not thrust my finger in the fire. Lay hands on him, I say. Why step you back? I mean to be the hindmost, lest that any should run away and leave the rest in peril. Stand forward. Are you not ashamed to fear?
Nay, never strive. Behold, I yield myself. I must commend your resolution, that, being so many and so weaponed, dare not adventure on a man unarmed. Now, lead me to what prison thou thinkst best, yet use me well. I am a gentleman.
Truly, Master Arthur, we will use you as well as heart can think. The justices sit today, and my master is chief. You shall command me.
What? Had he yielded? If he had withstood us, this curtle-axe of mine had cleft his head. Resist he durst not, when he once spied me. Come, lead him hence. How likest thou this, sweet witch? This fellow's death will make our mistress rich.
I say, I care not who's dead or alive, so by their lives or deaths we too may strive.
Come, bear him away.
And they exit. Brabo here, coming across as considerably less aggressive than previously, getting much more of the braggart soldier type figure here of, I'm going to lead from the back just to make sure none of you run away. Yeah, absolutely. I so would have cleaved his head in with my axe. Absolutely, definitely would have done that. Yeah. Oh, what he just oh, I was so looking forward to fighting. Oh. Yeah, so we've got this nice bit of action at the end. Again, developing Brabo and Splay, and nice to hear more from Hugh. We haven't heard much from Hugh. Hugh's not a big talker. But nice to bring him back in and remind us of the justice. So we have a sort of reconciliation scene between Arthur and Mistress Arthur. How are we feeling about that, Elizabeth?
I'm not sure how I'm feeling about that. I'm still getting more Patient Griselle vibes that I want. But just in terms of Brabo, I thought he reminded me of Tucker from, was it Poetasta?
Mm.
And he just all bluster and like blunder and not much substance to him.
Yeah. Rachael.
What was the play we did recently where me and Dan kept saying Paul Blart, Mall Cop, that one? Because it seems there's some I feel like there's some story arc here for Brabo. I mean, or some sort of social critique that he was an enforcer for courtesans, and now he's he's got some, I don't know, position in law that he's rounding up criminals himself.
He's not quite the same as Blurt. The Blurt figure here is more Hugh, in the sense that he's the representative of the law. Brabo has just brought them in to do the actual arresting, and he's there to sort of make sure it's happening. Because we don't have a formal police force in the same way. Depending on where this is set, I've no idea where this is actually set. It was London, wasn't it? Yes, it was. It was only 3 days ago that we established that. Yes, that was it. So you sort of effectively commission your justices to come in and make the arrest, and he's there to make sure that it happens. And luckily, our judge is sitting today, so that was fortunate. Lynn.
Yeah, like Elizabeth, I don't know how I feel about this reconciliation. I mean, I would have been a lot happier if the minute Mistress Arthur's death was announced, Arthur was sorry. It's like, oh my God, she's actually dead. What have I done? What have I done? What have I done? But that's not how it worked out. He had to basically get himself into a miserable domestic situation and be threatened with arrest and hanging before he's really sorry. So how genuine is that repentance? Because it comes under threat of retribution for his crime. So
is he sorry for what he did, or is he just sorry he's got caught?
Yeah, caught. Exactly.
And I'd go pretty much from all the self-serving bluster that he's just come out with, he's just sorry that he got caught. It doesn't feel very genuine. It's just very woe is me. It's very self-centered. But that also fits very much with what the play is about. I think in many ways it's almost a plus. I mean, the problem is, as ever, is with the response of Mistress Arthur, who I just kind of just wish would just go, oh, well, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Stay dead for another couple of days, Mistress Arthur. Just stay dead for another couple of days.
Enjoy your guilt. Yeah.
I should also just point out, Mistress Arthur doesn't actually have a name.
Yes, I was just thinking about that. She doesn't have a Christian name. She doesn't have her own name.
We don't know what she's called. She's just known by her husband's nomenclature there. Rachael.
I was going to say that this scene actually makes me more afraid for her, because there is some suspense for what you just said about, stay dead for a few more days. That if she decides to be, if we are in Patient Griselle territory, which this feels like each scene that goes on more and more, that she'll actually tell him that she's alive to help him, get out of these things. And then he'll wind up trying to murder her again and be successful the next time.
Yeah, it's interesting to say what, if he does get off, what the community will do with him socially afterwards, because this is the nature of communities, especially in early modern time. There's going to be a lot of people watching over your shoulder. It's very hard to, London is a moderately anonymous city, but it's not that much. Even in those days. Or more so in those days than today. Lynn.
Yeah, and Arthur says something in his confrontation scene with Mary and Brabo and Mistress Splay about just like, you know, here's my wife basically browbeating me, and if I complain about it, then the people will gossip about me and basically call me pussy whipped. So we are reminded now and then that this takes place very much in a social context. Mistress Arthur is also worried in our previous session about, like, why are you making my domestic problems public? That's really embarrassing for me. So yeah, the way the domestic relationships live in a social context really matters.
Yes, because, you know, he's on his run. Arthur is on the run, and his uncles have double barred their doors. His father's denied shelter. You know, the community's turned against him, which is, you know, to be fair, they've turned against him from the beginning of the play. Nobody has been on his side from very early on. And again, that's I think where the fundamental difference with Patient Griselle is that there's a believable social context going on. Whereas in Patient Griselle, it's the court, and the court does things, and they go off and they do things elsewhere, and it's all a bit nebulous. Whereas here, it's like there may be some consequences. But who knows? We've only got one scene left to go. Who knows where it's all going to land? I'm sure it'll all be delightful. Kyle, and then Rachael, then we'll move on.
I was just thinking about what we were talking about with the names, and she was Mistress Lusam before, right? Because she's his daughter. And I'm wondering, I mean, I'm trying to find some redemptive stuff in this play. If maybe she's to be kind of critiqued a little bit for her obedience, because isn't he the one that's always obedient and saying?
He's always agreeing, yes.
Agreeing, it's agreeable.
Yeah.
Agreeable, maybe.
Oh, I like that thought. Rachael.
Yeah, I was going to say that I feel like some of how we were saying that, how you guys were saying that the other people were against him, that kind of reminds me of Taming, or The Tamer Tamed, was it? When we were talking about that one. And then to what Kyle just said about old Lusam being so agreeable to other people, that maybe there's something there of them, maybe her not being as much of Griselle, but her father's a pushover, and maybe there's some over agreement in that family with other people that they kind of all get walked on.
Well, there's something slightly different, because in the sense that Mistress Arthur is very determined to follow the certain virtuous path, and you know, talks about, you know, determined love for her husband, whereas old Lusam can't determine on a thing for more than 30 seconds. So there may be a sort of sympathy there, but their pathology, shall we say, is slightly different. Anyway, we should gather, because we're about to meet them again. We haven't seen old Master Lusam and old Master Arthur for a while, and, you know, we enjoyed their company last time we saw them, so hopefully this will be fine. And Justice Reason's going to join them as well. So Act 5, Scene 3, enter Justice Reason, Old Master Arthur, and Old Master Lusam. Old Master Arthur and Old Master Lusam. So it is that I have heard both your complaints, but understood neither. For, you know, legere non intelligere neclare est.
I come for favor, as a father should, pitying the fall and ruin of his son.
I come for justice, as a father should, that hath by violent murder lost his daughter.
You come for favor, and you come for justice. Justice with favour is not partial, and using that, I hope to please you both.
Good Master Justice, think upon my son.
Good Master Justice, think upon my daughter.
Why, so I do. I think upon them both, but can do neither of you good, for he that lives must die, and she that's dead cannot be revived.
Lusam, thou seekst to rob me of my son, my only son.
He robbed me of my daughter, my only daughter.
And robbers are flat felons by the law.
Lusam, say thou art a bloodsucker, a tyrant, or a remorseless cannibal. Old as I am, I'll prove it on thy bones.
Am I a bloodsucker or a cannibal? Am I a tyrant that do thirst for blood?
Aye, if thou seekest the ruin of my son, thou art a tyrant and a bloodsucker.
Aye, if I seek the ruin of thy son, I am indeed.
Nay, more, thou art a dotard, and in the right of my accused son, I challenge thee the field. Meet me, I say, tomorrow morning beside Islington, and bring thy sword and buckler if thou darest.
Meet thee with my sword and buckler? There's my glove. I'll meet thee to revenge my daughter's death. Call'st thou me dotard? Though these 80 years I never handled weapon but a knife. To cut my meat, yet will I meet thee there. God's precious, call me dotard.
I have cause, just cause to call thee dotard. Have I not?
Nay, there's another matter. Have you cause? Then God forbid that I should take exceptions to be called dotard of one that hath cause.
My masters, you must leave this quarrelling, for quarrellers are never at peace, and men of peace, while they are at quiet, are never quarrelling. So you, whilst you fall into brawls, you cannot choose but jar. Here comes your son accused, and his wife the accuser. Stand forth both. Hugh, be ready with your pen and ink to take their examinations and confessions. We'll just pause before we have the entrance of the primary plot there. Old Arthur, old Lusam, delivering good value here. I like that it's escalated to a duel. That makes me happy. That's nice. I'm still very much on side that this justice knows exactly what he's doing. I felt like he was just going, look, there's no winning this case here, and I just like the way I think he just steps back and just watches them for a few minutes and just say, how far will this go? Okay, they're dueling now. Okay, maybe I'll step in. I'm definitely there. Yeah, I like these two. Any additional thoughts on these two before we move on? Alan?
I wonder how Alexander will react to staging a fight with Zimmer frames.
Yeah, I think sticks, definitely sticks. I think there's great potential here for all sorts of funness. Rachael?
The Ben Jonson play that we were reading last time, the Poetaster. I wonder if court scenes, like courtroom scenes, instead of courtroom dramas, if they would bring on the clowns for these scenes and have courtroom comedies, because that really seems what's going on here.
Again, there's these little tonal shifts that we keep getting in this play. We'll go from something that's quite serious to something that's very, very farcical. It's like the Aminadab turning up in the grave. You know, you've gone from a relatively dramatic moment to suddenly so yeah, and this scene, which is in theory, and you know, old Arthur and old Lusam, you know, both have quite good reason to be upset here. But it escalates in a way that's pathetic rather than bathos rather than pathos. Anyway, we will move on. The scene is ongoing. So, enter Mistress Mary, Brabo, young Master Arthur, Mistress Splay, Hugh, and officers. There may be some clashing between people. Hopefully, we all will talk separately.
It shall not need. I do confess the deed of which this woman here accuseth me. I poisoned my first wife, and for that deed I yield me to the mercy of the law.
Villain, thou mean'st my only daughter, and in her death deprivest me of all joys.
I mean her. I do confess the deed, and though my body taste the force of law like an offender, on my knee I beg your angry soul will pardon me her death.
Nay, if he kneeling do confess the deed, no reason but I should forgive her death.
But so the law must not be satisfied. Blood must have blood, and men must have death. I think that cannot be dispensed withal.
If all the world else would forgive the deed, yet would I earnestly pursue the law.
I had a wife, would not have used me so. The wealth of Europe could not hire her tongue to be offensive to my patient ears. But in exchanging her, I did prefer a devil before a saint, night before day, hell before heaven, and dross before tried gold. Never was bargain with such damage sold.
If you want witness to confirm the deed, I heard him speak it, and that to his face before this presence I will justify. I will not part hence till I see him swing.
I heard him too. Pity but he should die, and like a murderer be sent to hell, to poison her and make her belly swell.
Why stay you then? Give judgment on the slave, whose shameless life deserves a shameless grave.
Death's bitter pangs are not so full of grief as this unkindness. Every word thou speakest is a sharp dagger thrust quite through my heart. As little I deserve this at thy hands, as my kind patient wife deserved of me. I was her torment, God hath made thee mine. Then wherefore at just plague should I repine?
Where didst thou buy this poison? For such drugs are felony for any man to sell.
I had the poison of Aminadab, but innocent man, he was not accessory to my wife's death. I clear him of the deed.
No matter. Fetch him, bring him to answer to this matter at the bar. Hugh, take these officers and apprehend him.
I'll aid him too. The schoolmaster, I see, perhaps may hang with him for company.
Enter Anselm and Fuller.
This is the day of Arthur's examination and trial for the murder of his wife. Let's hear how justice reason will proceed in censuring of his strict punishment.
Anselm, content. Let's thrust in among the throng.
And that dialogue filling in the gap of getting Aminadab in, presumably he's brought in with officers.
Oh, Domine, what mean these knaves to lead me thus with bills and glaives? Oh, what example would it be to all my pupils for to see, to tread their steps all after me, if for some fault I hanged be? Somewhat surely I shall mar, if you bring me to the bar, but peace betake thee to thy wits, for yonder justice reason sits.
Sadab, here's one accuseth you to give him poison, being ill employed. Speak how in this case you can clear yourself.
Hey mihi, what should I say? The poison given I deny. He took it perforce from my hands, and, Domine, why not? I got it of a gentleman, he most freely gave it. As he knew me, my meaning was only to have it.
It's true, I took it from this man perforce, and snatched it from his hand by rude constraint, which proves him in this act not culpable.
Aye, but who sold the poison unto him? That must be likewise known. Speak, schoolmaster.
A man verbosus, that was for fine generosus. He was a great guller, his name I take to be Fuller. See where he stands, that unto my hands conveyed a powder, and like a knave sent her to her grave, obscurely to shroud her.
Lay hands on him. Are you a poison seller? Bring him before us. Sirrah, what say you? Sold you a poison to this honest man?
I sold no poison, but I gave him one to kill rats.
I smell a rat. You sold him poison then to kill his rats. The word to kill argues a murderous mind, and you are brought in compass of the murder, so set him by. We will not hear him speak. That Arthur, Fuller, and the schoolmaster shall by the judges be examined.
Sir, if my friend may not speak for himself, yet let me his proceedings justify.
What's he that will a murder justify? Lay hands on him! Lay hands on him, I say, for justifiers are all accessories, and accessories have deserved to die. Away with him! We will not hear him speak. They all shall to the high commissioners. Thus ends the play, and we all live happily ever after. Yeah. Who do we think's going to survive this situation? At the moment, it looks like Justice has just gone trigger happy, and he's going to take them all out.
Then everyone.
Everybody's guilty. You're all accessories before the fact. Off you go, Lynn.
Yeah. The temptation to just be like, okay, we're done. The only thing that would be unfortunate there is Aminadab, who's I mean, he's sort of useless, but he's really innocent. But I really wouldn't mind
some of that verse was truly criminal. I mean, really.
The world's a better place without Fuller or Master Arthur. So poor Aminadab, he's just sorry, collateral damage. Bye.
I do love the way Aminadab just goes, "Oh no, what will my students say?"
Hey, we are out of our homework. We get out of homework.
Yeah. Yes, this is a school trip, children. We're going to see how a trial works. Yeah, I just love the way. Yeah, Justice. He's just gone. He's just gone. Yeah, really full on here. Didn't see that coming. That at all. I mean, I've been championing him as a reasonable, human being, and not the comic figure we've had. But no, he's gone too far the other way now. He thinks he's in a tragedy. Yeah. Lynn.
But I think you could stage this so that it was still funny, because he says of Fuller, we're not going to hear him speak. I mean, Fuller's like, but because Fuller knows that it wasn't really poison, but he hasn't had a chance to say that yet. So if he keeps trying to interject, it wasn't really poison. But I think you could stage that so that it could be really funny.
Oh yeah, I think all of this is nicely ridiculous. So yeah, let's hope it ends thusly. Rachael.
Yeah, I mean, I think these types of scenes, I wonder if these things would kind of be popular in countries like ex-Soviet Union countries, or some of these places that used to have dictatorships, because the amount of people who are just being pulled in and are, because it seems like this Justice, the way he's acting, is thinking that they're guilty until proven innocent, because there's nothing really been presented yet. I mean, there's been the confession from Arthur, but everybody else is like, this hasn't happened yet. This Justice is trying to make it into a very big conspiracy.
I don't know why she swallowed the fly. Perhaps she'll die. Kyle.
Yeah, I was just thinking what we ended on. Enter Mistress Arthur seems to be like it's all setting it up for her to come in and resolve things, which is nice. I mean, it seems like that gives her kind of agency in this very kind of women behave yourself play.
Yeah, I was hoping no one would mention the rest of the play and we'd just stop there, because I don't think this is going to please anyone. Okay, let's move on then. They're all to the High Commissioners. Enter Mistress Arthur.
Nay, stay them yet a little while. I bring a warrant to the contrary, and I will please all parties presently.
My wife's ghost haunts me to my death. Wretch that I was, to shorten her life's breath.
Whom do I see? My son's wife?
What, my daughter?
Is it not Mistress Arthur that we see, that long since buried we suppose to be?
This man's condemned for poisoning of his wife. His poisoned wife yet lives, and I am she, and therefore justly I release his bands. This man, for suffering him these drugs to take, is likewise bound. Release him for my sake. This gentleman that first the poison gave, and this his friend, to be released I crave. Murder there cannot be where none is killed. Her blood is saved, whom you supposed was spilled. Father-in-law, I give you here your son, the act to do which you supposed was done. And father, now joy in your daughter's life, whom heaven hath still kept to be Arthur's wife.
Oh, welcome, welcome, daughter. Now I see God by his power hath preserved thee.
And 'tis my wench, whom I supposed was dead. My joy revives, and my sad woe is fled.
I know not what I am, nor where I am. My soul's transported into an ecstasy. The hope and joy confound my memory.
What do I see? Lives Arthur's wife again? Nay, then I labor for his death in vain.
What secret force did in her late nature lurk, that in her soul the poison would not work?
How can it be the poison took no force? She lives with that which would have killed a horse.
Nay, shun me not, be not ashamed at all. To heaven, not me, for grace and pardon fall. Look on me, Arthur, blush not at my wrongs.
Still fear and hope my grief and woe prolongs. But tell me, by what power didst thou survive? My own hands I tempered that vile draught that sent thee breathless to thy grandsire's grave. If that were poison I received of him.
That ego nescio, but this dram received I of this gentleman. The colour was to kill my rats, but 'twas my own life to dispatch.
Is it even so? Then this ambiguous doubt no man can better than myself decide. That compound powder was of poppy made and mandrakes, of purpose to cast one into a sleep, to ease the deadly pain of him whose leg should be sawed off. That powder gave I to the schoolmaster.
And that same powder, even that idem, you took from me, the same perfidem.
And that same powder I commixed with wine, our godly knot of wedlock to untwine.
But daughter, who did take thee from thy grave?
Discourse it, daughter. Nay, that labour save. Pardon me, Master Arthur, I will now confess the former frailty of my love. Your modest wife with words I tempted oft, but neither ill I could report of you, nor any good I could forge for myself, would win her to attend to my request. Nay, after death I loved her in so much that to the vault where she was buried, my constant love did lead me through the dark, there ready to have ta'en my last farewell. The parting kiss I gave her I felt warm. Briefly, I bear her to my mother's house, where she hath since lived the most chaste and true, that since the world's creation I did view.
My first wife, stand you here, my second there, and in the midst myself. He that will choose a good wife from a bad, come learn of me, that I have tried both in wealth and misery. A good wife will be careful of her fame, her husband's credit and her own good name, and such art thou. A bad wife will respect her pride, her lust, and her good name neglect, and such art thou. A good wife will be still, industrious, apt to do her husband's will, but a bad wife, cross, spiteful, and madding, never keep at home, but always be a gadding, and such art thou. A good wife will conceal her husband's danger and nothing reveal that may procure him harm, and such art thou. But a bad wife corrupts chaste wedlock's vow. On this hand virtue, and on this hand sin. This who would strive to lose, or this to win? Here lives perpetual joy, here burning woe. Now husbands, choose on which hand you will go. Seek virtuous wives, all husbands will be blessed. Fair wives are good, but virtuous wives are best. They that my fortunes will peruse shall find no beauties like the beauty of the mind.
It's interesting that the justice at no point speaks once all of these things are resolved. I personally feel that the justice's final speech is, young Master Arthur, you are guilty of attempted murder and bigamy, and I sentence you to go from this place and be hanged until you are dead. All properties will be passed on to your wife, Mistress Arthur, who turns out not to be dead. I don't know what the sentencing for attempted murder was, but I feel it might be quite deady. I'm not sure if it's full deady, but it feels like attempted murder is still quite a big crime here, people. And yeah, so I feel that the justice needs to have a speech there. I feel that's a way of resolving many of the problems with the way this closes. Briony.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to fix it, Justice comes back on and executes him for mansplaining, to be fair. twisted criminal. It was awful. It brought down the tone of the rest of the play, so he should be killed for it. And then the play's fixed.
I think after Anselm's speech, Justice sentences Arthur to death, and he can do that speech while being hanged. Literally, he can try and get it all out while choking. I think that way the audience can't hear half of it, and that works fine. On the plus note, I do quite like Splay. I don't know how Splay knows this, but Splay saying about how much poison would have been enough to kill a horse. I don't know how Splay knew that, but you just found that you liked the rhyme there, didn't you, the author? You just liked the funny rhyming bit that you were doing there. Again, vein, lurk, work, force, horse. First, hearse. Anyway. Lynn, then Rachael.
You were talking about let's just execute him anyway, mansplaining, attempted murder, whatever. It brought to mind the end of the Insatiate Countess. She has a reconciliation with her husband who's turned into a monk or something now, but she doesn't make it past the end of the play. Why should Arthur? I don't think she tried to kill anybody.
He's guilty. He's confessed. He is so dead.
He gets the last word, which really annoys me. I'm not against forgiving people who don't really deserve to be forgiven. I mean, if you deserve forgiveness, then it's not really forgiveness, right? I mean, that's what grace is about, is unearned forgiveness. But I want Mistress Arthur to have the last word, to say, like, let this be a lesson to you, men. Don't be a fucking asshole. Like appreciate a good thing when you have it, and don't go pursuing things that are going to make you miserable. Jesus, grow up. But no, Arthur has to make it a lesson in what good women and bad women are like. So, yeah.
And it's made even worse that Mistress Arthur's final words in the play are, look on me, Arthur, blush not at my wrongs. Her what now?
No, it's wrongs done to me. That means wrongs done to me. It doesn't.
Still doesn't read that way.
Yeah, it would be hard to because our use of our syntax is not as flexible, and but yeah, it means that wrongs that I've suffered, not wrongs that I've committed.
Rachael, then Kyle, I think. I've lost track.
Yeah, I don't know. This is this ending speech that he has. I just kept saying, "But you're a murderer." To his knowledge, he was a murderer up until minutes ago. And even if he wasn't successful, whatever that takes, like that show Mindhunter that was on Netflix, that they made, that there's something very serial killer-esque about this, and that it makes it seem like he's performing in a way to what people want. Maybe that's not what the text is doing, and this is something that early modern belief in forgiveness. But I think we had another play where I wrote down one of the quotes, and the quotes from some other play that we did that I can't remember the name of anymore was justice without mercy is bad, but mercy without justice is much worse. And this is what this feels like, that to what Lynn just said about the grace, is that it just leaves you in such a weird spot. And he feels like the worst person in this play. And then he's pointing to these two different women, like saying, don't look at me, look at these women, as if women are meant to be a moral compass for a man who does not have one, and it's like that patriarchal belief that women are the moral keepers of society and that people aren't responsible for their own morals.
And it's connecting to me interestingly with the various murder plays that we've actually had, the sort of true life murder plays. It feels almost like that this is like one of these things where except we have this sort of magic ability for the murdered victim to actually turn up and everything be all right, but it has that same moralizing tone to it as well. And I'm almost thinking that's a place to keep this, actually, is with those other constructions about justice, and all the various misogynistic and problems that we have with those texts as well. Kyle, then Briony.
Yeah, I agree with what Rachael was saying, and Lynn, and see. It just seems so conservative, as you pointed out, with him getting the last lines and chastity becoming this matter of like evacuating the self utterly. And also you can see the kind of mapping on of this female chastity onto Christian kind of mythos with the like resurrection and the miracles, and all depending on her accepting and not caring about the wrongs that have been committed to her. It just feels like so utterly conservative.
Briony.
Yeah, something Rachael said reminded me of this. There was one particular speech that Arthur had that I'm really interested in terms of what you've been saying all along through this play about pulling us into the early modern mindset, where he was using a lot of monetary words, and I just found that really, really interesting, where he said about exchanging his wife, and one of them being dross and the other one being tried gold, and there were all these like money related words in there, which really kind of hammers home the fact that this is a different time when women were so much more objects, I guess, but to be
Commodities.
Bought and sold, commodities, that's the word.
Absolutely. Elizabeth, muted at the moment.
I thought it was interesting that the Justice Reason didn't come out at the end and do what you said, Rob. But Aminadab comes out with this spiel about being Aminadab, and I was just like, why is he given words to say at the end? What purpose does he serve? And then I was just thinking about like what the readers have been saying about how morality is so gendered in this play, and I think that's one of the problematic things about it, is that the way that the gender seems to determine even punishment for wrongs done. You know, I just feel like if Mistress Arthur had done what Master Arthur had done, she would not have got away with it. But because Master Arthur is a man, he almost seems to evade punishment.
Lynn, then Briony.
And by the way, we still live in that world, at least here in the US. Overall, statistically, women who basically revenge murder their habitually abusive domestic partners are on average punished more severely than domestic abusers who end up killing their partners.
Briony, then Rachael.
Yeah, there's still a way to do it for a modern audience, though, where you just really lean into it. Like, I'm thinking of kind of sketches. I don't know if this won't translate very well for the guys the other side of the pond, but like the Fast Show, Mr. Chomley Warner, Women, Know Your Place, where it was like these fake instructional videos from the 50s telling women what they should be, basically. So I think there is a way that you can present that to an audience where it's so tongue-in-cheek, the women will just be like, ha, dicks.
Yeah, I mean,
this is how they used to think.
And you know, right up to that ending, even though we could see it coming a mile off, the play does keep throwing different directions at us, and different tones. It's like the world, the critique can be mined out of a lot of the text, you know, because again, you know, nobody's really liking Arthur for the entire play. The fact that the play gets him off is that final scene, but all the way through he's being presented in this awful way, and Fuller is being presented in this awful way, and that doesn't wholly feel like I was projecting onto it. That there is something else going on here, and then it's we have to have a happy ending, we have to do this conventional ending, this ending has to happen. That there are. That's how I'm thinking at the moment, is that this is the text to tune into how people actually thought, and actually the alienness, because we spend a lot of our time going, the past, it's just the same as today, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it's also not as well. That it is alien in certain ways. So there's interesting potential there. Rachael.
I to what Briony said, I mean, maybe you could do it as something like Father Knows Best, which I think was like a show, or there was like some other old show where Straight to the Moon or something, where it was like domestic violence was a part of the joke for that.
Yeah, To the Moon.
Yeah, that hasn't aged well at all. But also to what Lynn was saying about that objectification and the uneven application of the law by prosecutors, because I was reading an article where a woman in self-defense was, the prosecutor went overboard on the charges and eventually she got off, but it destroyed her health because they put her in jail over the pandemic for like 2 years before she went to trial because of all the laws that they've changed. And you could use this maybe even if it's supposed to be a comedy or something like that as a discussion piece, maybe in the US, because with the talk of Roe v. Wade being up in the air, there's other things that people are now talking about because there's so many laws like gay marriage, interracial marriage, segregation that weren't put into law, but were put into legal precedent. And the Supreme Court's now said that those things aren't, that precedent doesn't matter anymore. And there's a lot of people with their theocratical beliefs or something like that. And maybe this is something that happens in a theocracy, or, maybe you could talk about that, the uneven applications of laws or the failures of laws or things like that. Maybe something more complex than I'm able to say.
Lynn.
Yeah, this sort of window into the early modern mind and the value system, I think is really can be really useful, but it also can be really useful, like how we see some of these ways of thinking about justice and human nature is kind of ghosting in our own value system. I mean, one of the things that this play reveals is that people generally believed in the effectiveness of retributive justice, that somehow suffering, which is what happens to Arthur, that, his marriage is miserable, he's terrified that he's going to get hanged, he feels guilty, that sort of, karma's bitch, that the suffering that he undergoes, it changes him internally. It makes him genuinely sorry. It makes him a better person. He's not going to be a horrible husband now. We now really, really question that psychological and sociological model. Retributive justice does not actually, as far as the evidence shows us, work. So punishment for punishment's sake is not really an effective tool for social engineering, but people really believe in it. They really believe that blood for blood, and you got to suffer when you do wrong because that's what justice means. So something that this society deeply believed, that it's just like if you get punished, that will make you sorry and you'll be a better person. So we still kind of believe on a really deep level. So could this text be used as an opportunity to really interrogate that kind of deep-seated assumption?
Well, there's also, just on a slightly different angle, on a similar theme, is the way people market their own redemption story today. Of going, oh well, I was bad in the past, and I've been interviewed by someone on television, and look, I've shown how sad I am, and now I can go on Twitter again, and my career will return, and how people recycle. And there's something about Arthur at the end there that feels quite like that. I don't think it's a perfect crossover, but there is something about that performative redemption thing that's going on. Kyle, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've written on this a little bit in Sydney's Arcadia. And in a lot of places there's this staging of mercy and justice, and there's also language that echoes the kind of legal understanding of like not being found, or a presumption of innocence. And it's based on the scriptural stuff about if it's better that one guilty or that one innocent person, or if it's better that 100 guilty people go free than one innocent person is wrongly accused and prosecuted. But the problem with that for me, and it seems like it's always in these places, is that women are always always put in that position of being the sacrifice in order to establish that kind of mercy and justice and all this stuff, which is problematic. And I mean, even though it's interesting, the stuff they're doing with mercy and justice, it seems so awful that it has to always be about women being even killed, and forgiving. Pretty bad.
Rachael, were you waving earlier? No. Okay. I'm not going to go around the room for sort of formal final thoughts, because I think this is one of those texts where going, oh, how will we stage this, is a bit too complicated. Certainly, the context in which you do this, I think, is the most important thing. I think it's got to be something that's framed very clearly as, this isn't a fun play that we're doing just for kicks and let's just market it to everyone. This is within a very specifically framed context of maybe a season or a day festival where you have a selection of things, and this is prefixed with some context and putting it where it lives, and to see what effects and discussion that provokes, rather than, hi, let's join and enjoy this play, because it's not just a matter of just changing the title, it'll be fine in that sense. Alan, then Rachael.
Yeah, I must admit the curse of the final session has hit, I think, pretty heavily with this one. Throughout, we had some extremely good writing, some very well handled comedy, some very well handled verse. We then get to that final speech with a closing speech that's about as subtle as a lead brick. And any play that ends with a moralization in that, whether it's this or Shaw tended to do it at much later periods, I instinctively turn off. Because quite honestly, subtle as a flying mallet.
I mean, it may be a case that the play can, to a degree, be saved by simply changing the ending, and I don't have a fundamental problem with that. I think there's still a framing issue with some of the material. I think overall it's still very well, within its period, very well written and very well put together. It's just unfortunate that it's following these conventions and it's doing these things that are just have to end badly within the logic of what the playwright's doing. Rachael, then Lynn, then Briony.
This one, I've only been here for today, so I can't speak to the rest of it, but this one feels to me, what it's giving me today is the way that I felt when we read The Wounds of Civil War, that just the timing with which we read it, matching up with like political things. So I think you could use this as a discussion tool if something else comes up in the future that's similar to this, or just to re-bring up that topic. And I think there's something, because of that, there's something I'm going to take away from this play, if I was an audience leaving from it, that there's so much more here that I want to pick out, even though we say it gives you an idea into the early modern mindset. I think there are people in America today, in the more religious sections, even if they're in the minority, that do have some similar ideas towards women's bodies, and the idea of that, like years ago when Rihanna was abused by Chris Brown, and there were all those images of her face, somebody that I knew back then said, well, what did she do to deserve it? The people who victim blame people in these situations, I think there's still so much to discuss in terms of feminism and patriarchy and the way women are objectified in so many ways, and how this thought process leads to not just a social discrimination, but a medical discrimination.
And also, we focused a lot on Arthur, but we haven't focused perhaps as much on Anselm, because he also gets a speech at the end of the play, which is, the sort of nice guy approach to the patriarchy of, it all seems very reasonable and nice because he hasn't technically, okay, apart from the bit of necrophilia he might have been interested in doing, but but he's engaged with a different kind of problem with Fuller there, and so there's something potential as well that resonates. So I think this play is always going to resonate somewhere. I don't think these problems are going to go away anytime soon. I just think the focus is going to shift slightly depending on precisely when we come back to it. Lynn, then Briony, then Kyle, and then I think we're done.
I was talking earlier about the notion that punishment somehow makes people better, that retributive justice is effective, and we kind of now in a way know that that's not true. The data tells us that's not true, but a lot of people still kind of deeply believe that. Another thing that I think some people would say, oh well, now people get to do what they want, and it and we can ignore society, and that's actually not true either. And I think it would be interesting to put this play in conversation with a shrew, where Fernando, or whatever his name is, he says on a couple of occasions, what are people going to say? People are going to talk. They're going to say, I'm henpecked. They're going to say I'm pussy whipped. They're going to say I'm hag-ridden. And I can't live with that. And Arthur here in the end, he has a couple of lines about a wife who's careful of her fame, her reputation, her husband's credit, her husband's reputation, her own good. It's like, it's not just the quality of the relationship in the domestic sphere, it's how you move as a couple in society and what people say about you. And it's not true that marriage is a private matter. We all have to live in society. We all have to live among our neighbors. And we can say, yes, same-sex marriage is legal now. The law fully recognizes that as a legitimate contract. That's good. But we still have work to do as a society, because there's still prejudice. So yeah, we all have to live in society, and love is not love is not an entirely private matter, even though we like to believe it is.
Briony.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this one despite its flaws. The ending, we were all braced for the ending to not be quite what we wanted. But in this one, I don't think it would be that hard to make it what we wanted, because I think there's too much good stuff in this play to write it off, because I've said this before about plays, to write it off because of its bad ending. And also with the way this one makes you, it pulls you into that early modern mindset. You could perhaps use it, at the start of a festival of this kind of thing, to get people there, to really lay down what kind of a world this material is all set in. And I think there's so many good discussion points in it as well. We've had so many good discussions because of reading the text. So too many things that I love about this play. And the Latin that lands finally after reading so much Latin, this pedant schoolmaster and boys trope finally landing. I think there's too much good stuff there.
And Kyle.
Yeah, I am always loath to cut anything or change things, especially if they're violent, because I think sometimes that helps with discussion and exposes things that are going on. And the way you were all talking about festivals and, showing the world, I think there are some really good plays that are very kind of pro-female characters. And like, I just wonder about how you might be able to do this the way it is. if you juxtapose it with something that's kind of radically pro-female in some ways, which, I mean, granted, there's not anything that is completely pro-female in this era, but things like Roaring Girl or the Tame, is it Tame or Tame that is in response to the Taming?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, so if you did something like that, you could maintain the kind of violence, which is awful and everything, but also allows people to see just exactly how things are, especially important when they're still occurring today, like as we've been speaking. So I don't know, that would be my solution, I think.
Yeah, to contrast it, because I mean, the alternative is, hi, welcome to misogyny season. Are you feeling depressed? Well, see you in 12 hours. But yes, the idea of contrasting this with a much more positive text and put them in conversation. Yes, I think that's an excellent idea. I like that very much. And that's an excellent place to close the session. All that remains is thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.